On today's show, the season is over for the Hawks. We react to Game 84, what went wrong, and everything in between. We'll get into all that right now.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1956 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Rowland, coming to you deep in the night here on a Friday evening into Saturday. And today's podcast is brought to you by the folks at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances right now with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com. 50% off your first year with Monarch Money. I also want to encourage you at the top of the show, as I always do, to make us your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Hawks. Check us out and subscribe to the podcast anywhere you find your podcasts. That includes Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. And by the way, we are here all year round, 12 months a year, 52 weeks a year. We don't go away. And please go ahead and subscribe to this podcast, despite the Hawks being done for this season. Obviously, that's the headliner of the podcast today. Atlanta's 123-114 overtime loss at the hands of the Miami Heat on this Friday night. And because that was the elimination game format that the Hawks were in this spot, the 24-25 season is now over officially. I would say it was a tough way to end an otherwise productive and positive season. We'll get into kind of that more in a moment. I know it's a harder sell. And look, I've done a number of these podcasts now. I've hosted this podcast since 2016, and every year the Hawks have not won the championship. So at the end, there's been a season-ending loss to break down. That was kind of the tone of Quinn Snyder post-game as well. I shared some extra bonus audio on the audio-only feeds of this podcast before I started recording tonight of Quinn and Trae Young and Okongwu all talking post-game. And, no one is in a good mood, obviously, after this one. It's also fair to say that the Hawks are not going to win the championship this year, no matter what happens tonight. So there's a little bit of, intrigue with that, how you handle it, how you discuss it. It was a frustrating way to lose. The Hawks came all the way back and then led late before going to overtime. And by the way, they had to force overtime on a buzzer beater by Trae Young at the end of regulation to even get to the extra period. And then overtime went about as badly as it possibly could have gone. And that's obviously leaving a sour taste in everyone's mouth at this point. But there was still a tone that was relatively optimistic for this Hawks team post-game about how well they played at times this year, about how they never stopped fighting, which I definitely would agree with, honestly, about this group, the youth of this group as well, as we'll get into both on this podcast and especially later on into the summer, about how this is still a team that is young and on the upswing. And look, they were undermanned by the end. We all understand that. I was asked today basically what I thought about this team and kind of the overall team quality right now of this roster, sans Jalen Johnson, sans Clint Capella, Larry Nance. And I would have said, yeah, a play-in loss is kind of what you expect for this particular group and the way that they are constructed right now. That's kind of fair to say. At the same time, a very winnable game on a Friday night at home in your building, and you just didn't make shots. We'll get into all the way through here. If you're new to the podcast, what we do, generally speaking, after games, it'll be mostly that on this show, is kind of talk about the big picture of what went right and what went wrong. In the middle of the podcast, I kind of get into my more granular observations, my notes, how the ending of the game went, tactical stuff, etc. I'll talk about the players and how they all performed as well. And at the very end of the show, a brief look ahead to the Kings pick. And the Hawks got some good news, actually, a little bit of good news at the end of the night as the Grizzlies beat the Mavericks, which definitely helps Atlanta's future when it comes to the draft. But, big picture, this is one of those games that probably infuriate a lot of listeners that don't like the way that I approach things sometimes. But if you zoom way out and take a cold, calculated approach to this game, it was essentially a make or miss league game. And what I mean by that is one team shot better than the other on pretty similar shot quality to the two sides, and that's what swung the game. There are four factors in an NBA game, and a basketball game generally speaking, that are considered to be like the core tenets of how you win. Shooting is one of them, rebounding, turnovers, and free throw attempts. And basically the shooting one is the most important one. And it's the one that the Hawks lost significantly in this game. So if you want to be cold and calculated, as I sometimes am on the show, that's what happened. Also, the Hawks didn't play perfectly well in every aspect of the game. Certain rotation stuff, all those things. The Heat, to their credit, made a bunch of shots in overtime. And, sometimes you tip your cap. Also some bad luck along the way. Like at the end of regulation, the Heat, as I'm sure I'll bring up again later, the Heat made two of the most ridiculous, lucky tip-in shots in about a 90-second span to keep themselves above water at the end of the regulation that were very unlucky for the Hawks. That kind of stuff happens too. It's a 48-minute game, and it's just a 53-minute game, And a lot happened, a lot to get to. I won't be able to get to it all on one podcast, but in the end, it is a loss and it's the end of the season for Atlanta. So we'll get into some big picture stuff, but I wanted to at least lead with the fact that I do believe, and this will probably be unpopular in some circles, this is a good season. Obviously, it's a tough way to end a good season. It's not the way anyone would want to lose. Obviously, there's a debate. I actually saw this happening before I started recording, whether it would have been better to lose this way or would have been better to lose in like dire fashion to the Cavs, which isn't a guarantee. That didn't have to happen, but the Hawks would have been underdogs in that series by a lot. And, I would argue that you want to make the playoffs. You want to get to the playoffs and get the experience for your young players and nothing else, have a chance to kind of, be David against a Goliath, all that stuff. That's better than ending this way. But you can't choose it. This is the way that ended. And there you go. So as far as this game is concerned, I already alluded to it once, but I'll just say it very plainly. Offense was the problem in this one for Atlanta, and it came down in a lot of respects to shot making. Atlanta had a 109 offensive rating in this game. That is well below what they would have probably wanted to draw up on paper. That's below the league average. It was 102 in the first half. It was actually 123 in the second half, which is an excellent number in terms of efficiency. That does not include the overtime period. But a lot of the underlying numbers were very similar in both halves. The difference, drum roll please, was that the Hawks shot the ball absolutely terribly in the first half and then shot it pretty well in the second half. In the first half, they were 14 of 30 on twos, so sub 50%. That's bad. They were also 5 of 21 on threes, also bad. Second half, very simply, they were 13 of 22 on twos, very good, 68%. And 9 of 22 on threes in the second half. That's very good. 40+% from three-point range. So it might be one of the clearer examples of a make or miss league that you'll ever see. In the first half, the Hawks could not buy a shot. And we'll get into why that is individually, who didn't shoot well, all that stuff. As a team, they could not buy a shot in the first half. In the second half, they shot much better. And wouldn't you know, the scoreboard improved quite a bit from the first half and the second half. They had 10 turnovers in this game, the entire game. That's an elite figure. Over 53 minutes of game time. And they didn't have some massive offensive rebounding game in this spot, but they had 14-second chance points, very normal. The only thing that they probably didn't do offensively other than make shots was get to the line, other than Trae Young. But by the way, neither did Miami. So that's probably not a huge deal. They had 22 fast break points, 36 points in the paint, all very solid numbers. They had 3 guys with 20 points or more. Okongwu, who was great in this game, had a 28-point game. He was awesome. Trae kind of scratched and clawed and all that stuff to 29 points. George Niang was awesome in this game. And Karis LeVert was hot and cold, but did enough. 15 points off the bench. And look, defensively, the numbers look fine. They don't look great, but they look fine. Miami shot the heck out of the ball in the first half and also at the end of the game in overtime when they made 5 threes in about a 3-minute period. That's kind of tough, obviously. But the Heat were just good, not great as a shooting team in this game. Not incredible, just solid enough. And the Hawks won the turnover battle. The Hawks held up just fine on the defensive glass. They only allowed 13 offensive rebounds on 48 missed shots. Like, they didn't do a bad job there either. I don't mean to be reductive, but this is one of those games where I've watched the game now once live and once again in full, and it really came down to shot making. And some of that's talent. These are professionals. Not all of it is variance. I'm certainly guilty of pointing to shooting variance and just the make or miss league aspect and all that stuff. But also, the Heat had guys that are not great shooters that made shots. Davion Mitchell, 4 of 9 from 3, including 3 in overtime. He's a not very good shooter at the NBA level. I mean, Tyler Hero's a great shooter. He made a bunch of shots. Hats up to him. Kyle Anderson made 2 difficult jumpers in a row, and he's not a very good shooter. Like, that stuff happens in the NBA sometimes, but they couldn't withstand it in this game. And then offensively, the Hawks didn't have that. Zachary Richichet had a game that he will, I'm sure, want to forget. He was 1 of 11 from the field in the game. I still like Zach quite a bit. He was not up for the moment, shooting-wise, in this game. That's just one player. But anyway, I'll stop talking now and just say this. The Hawks played well enough to win. And what I say by that, I draw a distinction between how they played and how they shot. You can play well and not shoot well. Now, and that's my opinion. Now, I know there are fans that don't buy into that. Generally speaking, it's like you got to make sure. Okay, yes, they had to make shots. They didn't make shots. That's plain, simple, accurate. They did not make enough shots in this game, especially in the first half. I thought the Hawks played well enough to win, and they didn't make shots. Both can be true at the same time. That's the case here. You can dwell on that if you want to. And yeah, again, I'm not telling anybody how to react. If you want to be mad about the loss, I totally get that too. I have a harder time, generally speaking, getting worked up anyway, in a game where it really is as simple as shot making. Doesn't make it any easier for the team. Players are still frustrated. So it's the front office, all that stuff. I'm sure everybody just not having a good time right now. I get that. But for me, it's easier to kind of take that and process it a little bit more and just say, yeah, a bad night is at a bad time. And especially, I want to say this out loud. Yes, overtime was bad. We'll get to that later on. It was awful. But the Hawks came back from 17 down. They made plays to end the game. They got it to overtime. Bullen was on fire, all those things. If they had rolled over and lost by 20, that would have been way worse than what actually happened. Now, could you argue that it would be less taxing on everyone's emotions and they just lost in regulation? If Trae Young drives and gets blocked or misses at the end of the regulation instead of tying the game, is that easier or better? I don't know. Teach their own on that. But in the end, it's a loss for the Hawks. It's frustrating for sure. And the offseason begins earlier than they wanted it to. And there's a lot to talk about there that I'm not going to get into today, a lot of it, but there's a lot of storylines looking ahead. Just briefly, I'll just say this out loud. 2 draft picks probably in the first 25 picks. That's very helpful. But you have free agency decisions on Karis LeVert. You have one on Larry Nance Jr., Clint Capella. You have free agents. People were asking me, could this have possibly been Trae Young's last game as a Hawk? Possibly, yes. I would guess no right now. That would not be the case, but that's definitely possible at this point in time. Is it possible other guys could be? Yes. It's not a roster that's locked. Other than guys like Zachary Ricochet, Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson, I think those guys are going to stick around. Everybody else is up for debate. So, their decisions. It's a big summer ahead. I will one more time double down and triple down on this. I believe this is a good season for the Hawks overall. Not a great one, if you want to say that. That's fine. But given all of the context of where the Hawks were this year, their roster quality, losing Jalen for half the season, to go out there and win 40 games with this roster and this injury luck and this youth after an offseason where you didn't really do anything to push chips in to win now. It was a retooling year all the way around. Yeah, I find that to be a pretty good season. Is that hard to sell right now? 100% it is. I get that. There will be fans that will hate that I said that. That's also fine. To each their own. I try my very best to not tell you how you have to feel. That's all. That's up to you. Everyone processes things differently. I tell you how I feel, how I analyze the team, and for me, it was a good season that ended in a way that was not great for everybody involved. All right, we'll get into how this game actually flowed in a moment, plus some player-by-player evaluations at the very end of the podcast, a brief look at some positivity about the Kings pick. All that's coming up in just one moment. This show is brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time, and with Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts ready to help you take on your business and take it to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and in marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or you need a long-term partner for your business, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. If you need help with a marketing campaign, they can connect you with a freelance expert who can deliver incredible results for you through Upwork. And with Upwork, they also make it quick and easy to hire. Posting a job is free and simple. Within a day, you have multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork will help you to actually find affordable, top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently and effectively. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That is UPWORK, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. All right, in an effort to not make this a 30-minute segment, I might fast forward through some stuff because there was a lot that happened in this game, as you might expect for an overtime game. It had a lot of crunch time, a lot of back and forth, etc. I do want to at least, of course, talk about the beginning of the game because it was not a good start for the Hawks. It was 10-0 in favor of Miami. And look, if you want to be cynical or at least be playing like this, you could say if the Hawks just showed up at the beginning, quote unquote, showed up at the beginning, they would have been in better shape. That's somewhat true. Now, Atlanta went empty 5 trips in a row to begin the game. They looked a little bit nervous to me. That wasn't a huge topic after the game because of the way things went. You don't want to ask too much about the beginning of the game after an overtime game. That's just kind of the natural thing. But they looked a little bit skittish to me, like a young team might in a must-win spot. They did settle in a little bit. They missed some shots early still, but they got a couple to go down. Okongwu made a 10-footer. At the first time out, though, they were down only 5, despite shooting 5 of 17 from 3. From the field, and 1 of 8 from 3 to begin the game. Now, it was 9 guys who played in this one, so rotationally, no surprises. They brought in Vit Krejci a little bit earlier than they had previously. Vavit was clearly the ninth man. He played 8 minutes in the entire game. And I'll talk about more rotation stuff later on. The Hawks trimmed things down. They basically did not play Ricochet or Moguet for the final quarter and a half plus overtime. So it was a different rotation than you might have guessed coming into the night in this one. But it was Mo's backup center. They played smaller than they had in the past because I think Miami played smaller as well. Khalil Ware is kind of their backup center in the way that Moguet has been, but it was mostly small ball from Miami the whole game, which allowed the Hawks to play a little bit smaller, and then they played Niang more because he played very well in the game. I think offensively, there was a couple brutal possessions where like LeVert and Gay ran pick and roll together that did not go well. I thought Mo was a big problem on offense in general in his minutes in this game. Not a huge surprise. He's not a good offensive player right now, but that was a hesitation, I would say, offensively. But even in my notes right now, the offense was bad in the first quarter, but it was mostly just the shooting. Everything else was fine. That was kind of the theme of the game. They brought Niang in after he didn't play at all in the first entire quarter of the game, which in retrospect looks kind of bad because he played really well in this one. But he came in and was awesome in the second quarter. He actually had a bunch of drives for buckets that were big in this game. Not exactly what he usually would do, but rebounding for him as well. He had 4 rebounds in this game, including 2 offensive rebounds, had 4 assists, which was just a huge positive for the Hawks all over the floor. Couple of bad swings for Atlanta against them. There was one that was Highsmith, like a full court pass that was a save out of bounds that led to a 3. Just some, I would say this. I try to be objective on the show, and I am right now. I believe this, even watching the game in real time, and then again, I think a lot of the swing kind of good or bad fortune plays went against the Hawks in this game. Now, if you want to accuse me of being a homer, that's fine. I'm generally not one. But if you watch this one, there's a lot of plays that were just like little tiny things that went towards Miami and not that many that went towards Atlanta, in my opinion. Anyway, yeah. They were down 17 points after about a quarter and a half. If the game begins there, the Hawks are the better team by a lot. But the game didn't begin there. You dug the hole. They had 28 points on their first 35 possessions. At that point, according to our friends at Clean the Glass, who do a great job in the stats environment in the NBA, the Hawks were literally in the first percentile in effective field goal percentage, which is basically you're shooting from the floor, not free throws. 2s, 3s. First percentile at that point in the game. If you shoot like that, you will be losing. And they were. They were 9 of 19 on 2s and 1 from 3 from that point and forward. Now, they got back into the game. They were down by only 9 at halftime after they shot it better, but it was still pretty rough. And that obviously was a huge factor. Now, from that point forward, the Hawks played great. Honestly, they really did until overtime. They had an 11-2 run early in the third quarter to make it a 3-point game. Okongwu had this awesome play early on where he got switched on to hero in space defensively, which is a tough task for a center to have. He holds up well. He gets a steal and then finishes a fast break through a contest at the end of the play. Great stuff from Okongwu the entire game, honestly. Then Dyson got a steal. Moguet hit a corner 3. They're back within 3. And the building is alive, all that fun stuff. Typically in this game, I would say, after a timeout, the Hawks missed 3 consecutive wide open looks from 3. 1 by Trae and 2 by Ricochet. And that kind of pushed them to being down by 13 again. So they did all that work, got within 3. Then they missed 8 of their next 9 shots, including 3 threes that were wide open. And then a lot of that work's given back. Now, to their credit, they got back into the game. There was also a sarcastic cheer from the crowd when Miami was called for their first foul the entire half, like 10 minutes in. LeVert, Niang, and Colin made some shots. I mentioned this before, but Kyle Anderson, I like Kyle Anderson, honestly, but he has one of the worst looking shots you'll see in the NBA. And he made back-to-back long jump shots at the buzzer of the shot clock. And again, that's kind of the variance thing in this game. Like those were 2 shots. There's like, you got to be kidding me. And they both went in. You get down by 9 points, but you still have to kind of shrug. This is literally in my notes from earlier in real time. Sometimes you have to shrug. That's what I wrote down. And that's true. Now, they get back into the game again. 2 threes, 1 by Man, 1 by by Trae. It was the 3rd time in 2 games that they got back within 3 points exactly. But this time, they got actually over the line. Dyson made a 3. That was nice to see from him. They tie the game up. First time ever since it was 0-0. Trae dies on the floor defensively, and the Hawks bench mobs him in the corner in a fun kind of play there. Then Trae hits a step-back 3 for the first lead of the game, and I have been in the building for most of the games this year. It was the loudest I have heard that building all year long. Was it Trae hit that 3 for the lead? I want to stop here and just note this real fast. In the fourth quarter and really second half, Trae and Onyeka both played the entire fourth quarter and overtime. Onyeka played the entire second half and overtime, which is insane for a center. Insane. And he did it. Dyson and LeVert both played almost the entire fourth quarter overtime. And the fifth spot was split between Niang and Man. There was no Ricochet. There was no Gay. And in real time, I didn't hate that, which speaks to how much they were struggling, the young guys. What I did hate, I'll try to repeat this too much. I thought Man played way too much at the end. I thought Niang was just very clearly the better option. And I get it, Man's a better defender, but he's not that much better defender. Like, he's different. He's more athletic. But I thought Niang was soundly better than Man. And I kept going back to Man. I didn't really understand why. The numbers didn't like that either. So just want to at least note that out loud. I'll fast forward to this. Probably the sequence of Okongwu's career to date happened with 5 minutes to go. He hits 3 at the top of the key, a shot he didn't even take till this year, honestly. And then after a steal, gets a dunk and celebrates and pumps fists and was a way that he's not ever really is. And the Hawks led by 6. 6 at that point in time. And they lose. That was a little bit tough. But it's because it happened right away. After the timeout, after that, Atlanta had 3, it sounds familiar, 3 pretty good looks in a row and missed them all. And Miami did not. Miami made 3 straight shots, and suddenly they go down by 1 again. It is what it is. I thought the refs missed a pretty obvious goaltending call with 3 minutes to go. That would have been a big swing in the game. That's 2 points the Hawks probably should have had. They didn't have. Another one of those luck factors. Didn't go well there. Niang missed a 3. And one of 2 shots in about a 90-second span that were incredibly lucky from Miami. Both were tip-ins. One was a no-look tip-in. The other one was just completely. I mean, you got to watch the plays. But they were both end of shot clock. Great defensive possessions for the Hawks. And Miami just gets the exact right bounce at the exact right time, and it is buckets. And that, again, contrast that with a missed goaltending call on Miami right in front of where the media were sitting, right in front of me. Saw it in real time. All of that goes away from them. And, it is what it is. Now, fast forward to the end here a little bit. They got to stop. I thought Niang should have taken a corner 3 in the left corner, and he didn't. He drove instead and honestly got to a very good look at about a 5-footer. Now, this has been lost because they went to overtime, but that was a good shot, in my opinion. But it is your 5th guy on the court taking the biggest shot of the game to date with Trae nowhere to be found. Didn't always love that process. I did like it was a good shot. But Niang, who was awesome in this game, left a shot from 5 feet short. And that's the way you can't miss it. There was nobody there to rebound it. If it had been long, it would have had a chance, etc. That was kind of a brutal one. They had to foul, and Tyler Hero, who was actually quite good in this game, missed one for them. So that was the one break the Hawks got late in this game. Hero's free throw. And that allowed the Hawks to do this. I hate, and I think everyone hates, all Hawks fans, their diehards hate this play where the Hawks throw the ball deep into the backcourt and set up Trae one-on-one with the game on the line. And it's not because Trae's not great, because he is at offense, but it's not a good process. But this time around, they spaced really well, and Trae just blew by Andrew Wiggins. It was a great play by Trae. Got all the way to the rim, scores, ties the game, forces overtime. That's been lost. It already has been lost, but the Hawks had to make a play right there to overcome all of that, and Trae made the play. Got to the rim, scored, forced overtime. Overtime didn't go well. I'll be short about this, but I didn't like that Man was in the game, and he immediately on the first possession offensively of overtime kind of rolls off the screen and just doesn't look for the ball at all. Trae makes the pass that he would make to everyone, and it's there, and Man is just looking for it, and it's a turnover. Tough. And then, Miami made back-to-back threes. I'm shrugging if you're not watching on YouTube. That's just what it is. But Davion Mitchell, who is a career 34% three-point shooter, and who I believe was 1 of 6 from 3 going into overtime, made 3 in overtime. Yeah. The Hawks did themselves no favor on offense either, to be fair. They didn't play well on offense in the fourth quarter. Okongwu made a 3 that they had to have. Trae made one to get them back in the game. They were back in the game multiple times. But, the last kind of chance they had down 6 after a jump ball was Trae giving the ball to LeVert for what was an open 3, and LeVert, for whatever reason, either didn't catch it cleanly and kind of like just bizarrely double clutched. And he shot it, but missed it pretty badly, and that was kind of their last gasp. That ended it. I know people were talking about the Davion Mitchell 3 at the very end. That was kind of the actual dagger, but it was mostly over at that point anyway. So overall, Miami shoots 5 of 6 from 3 in overtime. And yeah, Atlanta didn't play well in overtime, I wouldn't say, but they were not as bad as the 9-point margin indicated in overtime. And I'll stop there for now before I keep ranting. So that was a long breakdown. I get that. Lots of observations. The stuff that I thought was notable, we'll come back to in the player stuff, is that the Hawks really trimmed the rotation down. I didn't always agree with the decisions, but Quinn did coach this game like it was an elimination game. He cut the young guys. He played the veterans. Minute totals, 50 for Okongwu, 44 for Trae, 44 for Dyson, 37 for LeVert. But they played hard to win this game. They did. The players played hard. Something I got a question about during the game as well, before I forget, is that someone asked me if I thought the Hawks played hard in the game. Yes, 100%. The Hawks played very hard. Hard doesn't always mean you play well. They were a little nervous early in the game, for sure. But effort was never a problem in this game, I didn't think. People always, I shouldn't say always, sometimes equate defensive performances with effort and all this. I thought the Hawks played really hard in this game, and it was on brand. The Hawks played hard all year long. All year long. Now, young teams usually play harder. I get all that. They played hard all year long. That was the case here. It was not an effort issue. It was an execution and particularly a shooting issue by the end. And if you kind of zero out all the other columns, just look at the one big swing in the game on the stat sheet was the shooting. And there you go. All right, more to come in a second when it comes to player-by-player evaluations and a brief look at the one positive thing tonight for the Hawks off the court, and that was the Kings pick swing. All this coming up in just one moment. This is brought to you by Monarch Money. I think I've all done this, but at times in the past, I look at my bank account and wonder where all of my money went, honestly, between dining out and online shopping, entertainment, etc. It's easy to lose track sometimes. That's where Monarch Money comes in for you. Monarch Money is your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control of your finances. And Monarch Money is not just a budgeting app. It's instead a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, your investments, and your spending all in one place. You actually stop managing your money and start instead building wealth. When I started using Monarch Money, I realized how much money I was spending on food each week, for example, and now I budget smarter and save more in that area and other areas as well. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to track your finances, track your spending, and even plan your long-term goals for you as well. And with managing your money in conjunction with your partner, if you want to do that, it can be smoother and easier than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without any of the stress. Take control of your finances right now with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com. 50% off your first year with Monarch Money. The place to go one more time is monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. All right, and before I look ahead briefly to the King situation and all that stuff, I promise you I'm getting to that in a second, some player-by-player evaluations in this game. Like I said, 9 guys appeared. Everyone that was active other than Dom Barlow and Garrison Matthews did not play. I thought not playing Barlow was the right decision. That was the right thing that the Hawks did there. Same with Garrison. Pete Krejci played 8 minutes. He was better in this game than he was in Orlando, but was the right call to stop playing him, I thought. The one thing that Pete does offer is the shooting, but he was 0-1 from 3. Wasn't getting him up. Had 2 assists, but defensively was a weak link. So I thought Pete is a useful player for sure. Helpful, great contract, all that stuff. It was the right call not to play him, I thought, in this game. Terrence Mann was probably the guy who played big minutes who was the shakiest for Atlanta. 5 points, 5 fouls, assist, 3 rebounds in 25 minutes. You know, Mann is a solid enough defender, but not a great one. I thought Quinn tends to lean to veterans, which I knew was going to happen. I thought he was going to play more than he probably should have in this game, which definitely happened. But I think my main thing with Terrence Mann in this game is that he just didn't do anything offensively. I don't mean that negatively implied-wise, but like it just was negative because he took 3 shots in 25 minutes. And, you know, you can make an impact without scoring, but he was passing on a lot of good looks. And he took 2 threes. One of the threes was actually a terrible shot, like a terrible one. The other one that he made was wide open, made it, good stuff. I thought he was a ball stopper a little bit offensively. You know, Mann's just been a little bit clunky. Like he's an NBA player. He's a rotation player, obviously. The contract is another question we'll probably talk about a lot this summer. I didn't love that trade. I said as much at the time, mostly because of the contract. But I thought, man, should have played, but probably played a little bit too much and wasn't great and was -8 in a 9-point loss. It is what it is. In contrast, I thought Georges Niang was awesome. They could not have possibly asked for more from Georges Niang in this game, other than he probably should have played a little bit more even. Between not playing the first quarter and then not playing all the way through in crunch time, yeah. He was 20 points on 15 shots. Excellent stuff there. 4 assists, 4 rebounds, 2 steals. Yes, he missed the 1 5-footer. That's basically the only thing that you could say about Niang in this game, but he was effective as a driver. He had to be guarded as a shooter. Like, this is the good scenario of Georges Niang. Again, he is limited defensively. We all understand that. He even understands that. But he does rebound. He does compete. He's a good shooter, really, really good shooter. And I thought that it was good to see him play well for the future even. But, like, I was not a huge future-facing piece, but a guy who's under contract for next year, I thought he was a key part in the Hawks getting back in this game and played very well. Karis LeVert, it was more of a mixed bag, 15 points on 15 shots, not efficient in this game, but 7 rebounds, 6 assists. He played a lot of minutes. He played as much as he probably could have played. 37 minutes off the bench. I thought Karis was a big factor. There were some bad shots, but that's okay. He's going to be aggressive along the way. I don't think he was fantastic, but he helped them a lot and was a key part of the game really the entire way down the stretch. To the starters, look, I love Zachary Shea. He is my kind of player. He's advanced for his age. He's always in the right spots. He's mature, does all the little things that you love. In this game, he couldn't make a shot. And I thought he got a little bit jumpy as a result of that, but he finished this game 1 of 11 from the field, 0-7 from 3. Did have 2 steals. I thought he defended fine in this one. His third quarter stint with the shooting, I think is what probably got him pulled. Not that he was taking shots, because you want him to shoot always. The Hawks always want Zach to be aggressive, but he was rushing, like visibly rushing on open looks. And yeah, look, I said this to somebody offline post-game. If the Hawks had the 22-year-old version of Zachary Shea, they win this game. I'm very sure about that. But instead, they had the 20-year-old version. And he had a rough night. And that doesn't mean that he's a bad player. I think he had a very good rookie season overall when you adjust for the fact that he was a one-and-done age player and that, as I always say, rookies are generally terrible. And they are. He wasn't. He played well a lot this year. He had a rough night tonight. It was the right call to not play him in the last quarter and a half. That was fine with me. Usually it's not fine with me. If you listen to the podcast regularly, you will know that I usually want Zach to play more. He shouldn't have played more tonight. He didn't have it, and that happens sometimes. It's just what it was. And then Mo Gay, 15 minutes as well, 3 points, 2 rebounds. I thought it was more clear with Mo, like it's more typical of Mo, I would say. Mo's defense was a plus. He's a very active player there, but offensively, he's just a work in progress, and that's the kindest way I can say it. He's easy to scheme around if you're a defense right now. He's just not going to help you that much, and that's where his next step is going to be. But defensively, to be very positive about Mo Gay, Mo went from playing in the G League for half the season to being an integral part of the team at the end. Now, part of that's injury-related for other guys, but defensively, he's already making a big impact. Offensively, it's pretty rough, but I want to say it was a very good stretch of time the last 6 weeks from Ogay. Big for the future, and hopefully he can break the streak of the Hawks not getting much out of second-round picks for a very long time. Then you have the 3 guys who played a lot of minutes. Dyson Daniels, 44 minutes, 11 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, and 1 turnover for Dyson. I thought Dyson was not his best offensively, to be sure. He was pretty rough offensively at times in this game. I thought he was actually very, very good defensively. And yes, Hero had 30 points. But Hero had 30 points in 44 minutes, and he did it on 25 shooting possessions. And a lot of that was late in the game, free throws, etc. I thought he did a good job on Hero. I thought Dyson made some plays defensively, as he always does. He was huge defensively, and I thought maybe he's a little bit gassed offensively. Just didn't have a lot of juice offensively. Was not efficient. So he'll have better nights, but rebounding-wise, had 10 rebounds. He did a lot of things well. Offensively, he kind of dipped at the end of the year. Bad timing there, but I love Dyson. Great season. Trae Young, 29 points, 11 assists, 4 turnovers, 5 rebounds, had a steal. Trae didn't shoot it great like basically nobody did. He was 5-13 on 2s, 4-9 from 3, 7-8 at the free throw line, but 29 points on 26 shooting possessions. He actually was pretty solid efficiency-wise, and 11 assists. It wasn't a supernatural, beginning to end Trae dominant game, but he made some big shots. He made 2 big threes in the second half, plus the game-tying shot at the end of the game, 11 assists. His passing is always great. He competed defensively throughout. It was like a B- Trae game, but, he was far from the problem on offense, let's just say. If you watch this game back, that was pretty clear. And, yeah, he gave up a couple of big shots at the end of the game to Davion Mitchell. Davion Mitchell's going to be a guy you want to take shots. He just happened to make them. And then I saved Okongwu for last. Okongwu was awesome. And I kind of tongue-in-cheek, but also just kind of poke fun at the general nature of this. I'm very sick of the 7-footer discussion around the Hawks that have been for 20 years almost since Al Horford. But 28 points, 12 rebounds, 3 steals. Okongwu was awesome. 50 minutes. He played every second from halftime until the end of overtime as a center. That's ludicrous. And didn't tire out, played really well the entire way, made big plays. He was 8-11 on 2s, 4 away from 3. He's a real shooter now. I buy it. I'm not saying he's going to be Karl Anthony Towns as a shooter, but it seems like he's shooting with confidence. It's looking decent. It's a real weapon for him now. Defensively, he was flying around in this game. I think if there's one thing from this game, if you want to find a positive on the court, it would be Okongwu. Okongwu was really good, number one, but also hopefully people actually watch this game and don't come away with they need a new center. I'm not saying Okongwu was a top 10 guy in the league at the position because he's not right now. Could he be in the future? Maybe. But what I am saying is that he is a starting caliber NBA center right now. And yes, I understand how tall he is. I'll leave it there for now. Last thing before we get out of here, and trust me, I have plenty more to get to all summer long, so don't fear. I am not getting things tonight that I will get to in the future. I'm not leaving anything out on purpose. I have to leave some stuff out. It's one podcast. Many more to come. The Hawks got a little bit of good news after they lost, and that's that Memphis beat Dallas. Now, if you're not following along with this, that was important because the Hawks have a top 12 protected pick from the Kings. And I've been following it all year long. The ideal scenario is what is here now for the Hawks. Almost. Now, there is going to be a coin flip. Ironically, the Hawks and Kings have the same record. And currently they are 13 and 14 in the lottery. Now, the Hawks do not have their own pick. Keep that in mind. It's going to San Antonio. It's going to San Antonio. But there'll be a coin flip in the coming couple of days to determine who is 13 and who is 14. But at a bare minimum, what you need to know right now is that the Hawks have a 95-ish% or better chance to get a top 14 pick in the draft. All they have to do, knock on wood, is have the Kings not jump up into the top 4 on draft lottery day in 3 or 4 weeks. So don't celebrate yet. It's a good data point, but nothing is assured until the Kings do not jump into the top 4 on the day of the lottery. But if they don't, the Hawks will have the 13th or 14th pick in the draft from Sacramento. And given that Atlanta does not have their own pick, that is a pick that's very valuable for their future. And having 2 picks in the first round would be huge as well. So all that said, that was the one good result tonight. Was the disaster scenario was the Hawks losing and the Grizzlies losing, but the Grizzlies won. So that was very helpful in that regard. And we'll cover that much more later on this week when we have more clarity on the coin flips, all that stuff. Also with the Lakers pick, similar coin flip situation. All right, I've gone too long for my network partners to like it, but that's okay. It's the last game of the season. There are exit interviews for the Hawks on Saturday morning. I'll tell you this right now. I have a family commitment on Saturday morning. I will not be there for exit interviews. I hate that. That's the way it fell. The only way that I would get that way. It's the only time that I couldn't go in the next 2 weeks would be Saturday morning, and that's when they are. So unfortunate. But I will, I've already talked to confirm this, I will have the audio. I will go through the audio. I'll probably share some of the audio at some point, either on the podcast feed or within a show or whatever. And if there's any news that breaks, we'll talk about it on the next show, which will probably be Sunday or Monday. Stay tuned for that. If you are new to the show this year, what we do all summer long is do not take any breaks. We might slow down a little bit later on in the summer as far as volume of shows, but we are here all the time talking about the draft in big time depth on this show, as we always do. Guests, du jour, etc. Talking about the players that are on the roster now, players who are still on the roster later, trade targets, free agency, that'll all be there as well. I'll have guests up and down from familiar faces like Tyler Jones, Glenn Willis, to people about the draft. Brian Schroeder will be on the show, I'm sure. Ben Pfeiffer, frequent guests, etc. And we're going all the way through. Summer League, I always go to Vegas for that. Full coverage of that. The draft, free agency, we are going to have plenty to talk about. I promise you that. Plus, like I said before, free agency of guys who are on the team right now, Capella, Nance, LeVert, etc. Trade stuff, I can guarantee you people are going to be talking about Trae. We'll see how that goes, etc. So all that said, please, 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 if you're new to the podcast, subscribe and do not go away. We won't go away, so please subscribe. Keep listening to the show. Ratings, reviews. Check us out on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. Tell your friends about the podcast as well. Follow us on X/Twitter at Locked On Hawks. Follow me there at BT Rowland. I'm also on Blue Sky personally at BT Rowland. And then also my non-podcast Hawks coverage is going to be at patreon.com/BT Rowland. All right, everybody. I appreciate you listening to the show. Hopefully I didn't enrage every single person on this night. Obviously tough for the Hawks. No one to see them lose this game, including the organization and me and everyone watching on the outside. But a lot to get to from here. So not the end of the world. Upswing for the future for the organization. Young team, a lot of talent. And again, one last time, I'll be covering it in detail moving forward. All right, everybody. Thanks for being here as always, and we'll see you all next time.